Hey everyone, just wanted to show the process for an upgrade that I'm making to my Pencil Pi RetroPie gaming system. So I built this a while back. I wouldn't say I really threw it together, but I've come a long way in my technique and expertise, and ever since getting a 3D printer, I've found lots of opportunity to improve on designs and basically make them better with some 3D printed components. So what I've done is I've done a complete redesign on this little box that I have here. This is basically a self-contained RetroPie running on a Raspberry Pi Zero 2 with a little 7-inch screen mounted inside this little box here. This is a Vaults branded box. I found this at Walmart. Um, I think they call them pencil cases, but they're also just called a locking storage case. So I just wanted to take a moment in this video and just kind of go over the components that I have here to build one of these. I'd like to put together a tutorial for anybody who might be interested in building one of these. So first off, we've got the case. This is an old case. I've got a new one coming. This one has some holes that had already been cut in. That was for the power switch. This was a test. This was for the charging port, and then I cut it out bigger because I was testing some bezel design. You can see here, this is one of the 3D printed bezels that I was testing and making sure that the fit would work for the new design. So this has kind of become a project box. One of the things I'm going to have to remember to cover that I forget about is this box is designed to just open all the way. And what I did is I created a little stop here. This is made out of an old shoestring, and I'm going to have to look up what these little things are called here. But basically you drill a hole, and it's almost like a rivet, but it screws together. So I got two of those, one on the top, one on the bottom, shoestring cut to the perfect length to make the box hold open at a nice angle. So that's the case. I've got this is a wave share 7-inch screen. You can find it on Amazon. It's I think it's called 7-inch IPS screen for the Raspberry Pi, and it basically connects via a hat on the top of the Pi, and everything is powered through the Pi. So there's no external connections except for the hat and the ribbon cable going up to the screen, which makes it really compact and perfect for this project. Besides that, I struggled in my initial design with coming up with a sufficient battery. This is a 3.7 volt lithium polymer battery. This is, I think, if I remember correctly, it's 11,000 milliamp hours. So I can probably get, with my current setup, I want to say a minimum of 3 hours, possibly up to 6, depending on what you're running on the Pi. This Pi is not super powerful, so there's not really a ton you'd be running on it beyond Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis. Going on to the other components here, I've got this little USB. This is called a breakout board for USB charging. It's a micro USB connector. And I've got these really nice little servo connectors that I found at a local hobby shop here in town. They're perfect for quick connects and disconnects if you need to disassemble or modify anything inside the box once you get it built. So I really wanted to take the time and make sure I had a method to do that. This is the charging and power output board. So I've got a couple of cables wired in here. This is the power import from the USB. This runs to the battery to connect to the battery for the power distribution from the battery and for charging. And then these two little ports on the end here are going to be for ground and power out to the Pi, which I'll have running to a switch, which we'll go over next. So over here I got a little toggle switch, just a basic on-off open close circuit, nothing fancy. It only has 2 contacts, So you'll connect your power in and your power out, and either the circuit's either going to be open or it's going to be closed. All right, so that goes over, oh, well, and then I guess the last thing I've got here is I had to wire this in for low profile. I didn't want to plug it into a USB port and try to struggle with, getting the connection to fit in the box. So what I did here is I took just a 4-port. It's got one on the end and 3 on the side here. It's a 4-port USB, just 2.0, I believe. And I've got it wired into the data connections directly onto the pads on the underside of the Pi. You can find the diagram for all these little test pads from the Raspberry Pi Foundation. And there's a diagram that'll tell you which every one of these pads does. I also have the power directly to the Pi this way. If I need to disconnect power and disassemble the box again, I've got the little servo connector here connected directly to the power pads on the Pi. So it makes it for a nice profile here. As far as small components for assembling, I've got this little 3D printed bezel here, which will be for the power out input on the back. I'll cut a hole for this bezel to fit in and make it nice and clean. I've got some Raspberry Pis use the M2.5 screws, so I've got the 2.5 screws. I've got some standoffs to stand off of the base that'll fit inside the case, and then I've got some 10mm standoffs for the hat. So these are 5mm standoffs, the short ones. Then I've got 10mm standoffs. I've got some 2.5 nuts. And then for this power input chip, the breakout board here, this is M3. So I've got some holes on the base already printed in. These are M3 12mm. You can probably go down to about an 8 or a 10mm based on the 3D design I have for mine. But this is what I could find at my local hobby shop. And then I've also got the nuts, the M5 or M3 nuts for that. These were the old ones that I was using with the old design. They would screw down instead of up. So the new design, I'm coming up from the bottom and I'm just using a nut to hold the board in place. So that's pretty much all the screws and stuff that we'll be using to assemble. Onto the 3D printed parts. This is the base that'll fit inside the case. It just slides right in. You can mount your components beforehand that are mountable. So I've got the holes for the Pi. I've got it's a mounting block. It's just a raised section to kind of raise it up past the metal pieces of the case here. So I've got the little block here with the holes for the M3 screws. It's a tight fit for this. These holes, the 2.5 holes, are big enough the screws just slide right in. These holes I made a little bit snugger, so you may have to screw it in, but it doesn't tighten. You would have to still use a nut for these. And then I've got this little standoff here for the power board. Unfortunately, it doesn't have mounting holes. So what I'll probably use for this is some 2-sided tape and just stick it on there so it stays put. And then on this side is where the switch will come into the box, but it doesn't need to be, it's going to be mounted to the box, not to the board. This is a hole to seat the battery. The battery will just be held down in the box with double-sided tape as well. These are the controller slots. This is going to be for the 8-bit do 02 controllers, which they also call keychain controllers, really tiny Bluetooth controllers. So I'm really excited about this because it will make the box, everything will be self-contained except for the external Bluetooth speaker, which is required if you want sound. And then this little hole up here in the base is for the USB. When you have the Pi mounted, that USB block will fit right inside this little hole here, and we can use double-sided tape to hold it down as well. So makes it really modular, makes it easy to pop things out if you need to replace components or upgrade components. This makes it really easy. Onto the bezel part. This is the bezel. My old design just pressure fit inside, and you had to kind of just seat it to the depth that you wanted it to sit in the case. The new and improved version has these little standoff legs so that it fits inside the case, and you can press it back, and I'll just demonstrate here with this case. It seats in. The screen fits inside of a little inset here. I'm probably going to have to tape the screen down. If I put a little more thought into it, I probably could have put a couple of little holes on the corners and made like a little kind of like a picture frame thing that would slide over and hold the screen in place. But for now, I'll probably just kind of tape it in place. It doesn't really need a lot of force or strength to hold the screen where it needs to be. And then this bezel will just fit right inside here, and it's just big enough to where you have to use a little bit of pressure to get it into the corners, and those standoffs prevent it from going too deep. So it's basically going to sit flush with the case, and it will be, perfectly seated in there with the screen mounted inside. The ribbon cable is thin enough, it just slides right out, and it will just pop right into the hat that'll be sitting roughly about right here inside the case with the base mounted in. So stay tuned for a part 2 of this video where I will go over probably the basic assembly of this, and maybe cover, cutting out the bezel hole for the back for the charge port and cutting out the hole for the toggle switch. But that's waiting for the new case, and then I'll also have to work on figuring out what these are called because I can't remember, and install a hinge stop in the new case. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.